radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Big Puzzle. My name's Barry Prince, and I'm going to be here with you for the next hour. You probably figured this out. This isn't the Age of Fission radio show. I'm sitting in Fridays now on UCY, and I'll have a bumper for you next week. Thanks for tuning in. And today I'm going to talk about something that fills me with hope for the human race, period. And that sounds like a kind of a broad statement to make, but it's absolutely correct and true in my life. I'm joined today by Mr. Rick Simpson. Rick is a crusader worldwide for exposing people to the benefits of medical cannabis oil on the human body. Rick is the gentleman that is solely responsible for waking me up to what is really going on in the world of cannabis/hemp and what it can do to our planet. And I'm honored and privileged to be joined by Rick today. Thank you for joining me today, Rick, and how are you doing, bud? Good to talk to you again.
I'm doing fine, Barry, and I'm happy to be with you, brother.
Well, it's not like we haven't done shows before, Rick. I think we've done probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 shows in the last couple of years, and I never grow tired of talking with you, my friend. What you did for me, buddy, alone, you inspired me to really look into what was going on in this world of cannabis/hemp. And, you know, my only regrets now in my life are is that I didn't look into this earlier in my life. But now I know what I know. Boy, I'll tell you, buddy, it is pedal to the metal. It really is, Rick. I'm working on so many projects right now involving cannabis. People are really starting to pay attention to what can be done with this miraculous plant. Well, what have you been up to? What have you been up to over there? You're in Zagreb right now, correct? Or where are you right now?
Yes, I'm in Zagreb, Croatia, and I'm going to be in Munich at the end of this month. I got to speak at an event called Cannabis XXL in Munich. So I'll be there, I think it's the 29th, 30th, and 31st. And, things are, developing quite rapidly over here. I wish I could say the same for North America because, all I see over there is nothing but a mess. I can't believe that, that people are still, going along with their governments. The governments, the bottom line here is they never had any right to outlaw this plant, and they have no right to regulate it. But you have all of these organizations like Normal and even Cheek and Chong, falling to their knees, begging, please legalize it and tax us. This is insane. For God's sakes, we grew this plant for thousands of years. We used it in so many different ways, and today, for people to have to beg to use a God-given plant to heal themselves or for any other purpose, to me, it's just ridiculous. Both the people in the U.S. and Canada, they have to wake up and they have to take their countries back because they're being run by a pack of criminals. And I think Mr. Trudeau is living up to exactly what I said he would do. A very sad situation in Canada. But when you look at it, what did you have before Trudeau? Well, you had Harper. It seems like, the only way that Canadians are ever going to get away from this nonsense, they got to get rid of those political parties, and they got to take control of their own country. And get some people in there that, independent people that will run Canada honestly. Because, what's going on there right now, and this game Trudeau is playing with the people, next year we'll legalize it. To me, that's just pathetic. And I don't know why the people are putting up with them.
Well, because Canadians are a bunch of sheeple. I'm going to avoid talking about Trudeau today a little bit, because when I talk about Trudeau, my blood pressure comes right up, and I'm ready to go kill somebody, because I see what he's doing. I see what he's doing with the industry, how they're setting up to be completely controlled by government. You're absolutely correct. Rick, one of the things I ask people to do when I'm talking about cannabis is to look into the history of cannabis. Look into the history of it, and you'll find out what Rick just told you is absolutely 100% correct. That we've been using this plant for thousands of years. It was put on this planet for us to use. It's a God-given wonder, and for any government to control it is a travesty. And you know what, Rick? Once they got their hands on it, it'll never be free, ever.
Oh,
and,
no!
People got to wake up to this, guys.
They want their friends in the pharmaceutical industry to control it, but the pharmaceutical industry is based on return business, and if they had control of this, they would never produce an extract as good as you could produce yourself, because they don't want to heal you. They want you to keep coming back.
Well,
and so
healthy people ain't money.
yeah, that's what pharmaceutical industry is all about. And then on top of that, why should we pay these big drug companies tens of thousands of dollars for something we could grow in our own backyards and produce ourselves, and in the end have a better medication? People are so mixed up about this subject. But I want the world to understand. It's just like Raphael Michelin said. It's really this entourage effect, the synergetic effect of all these different cannabinoids working together. That's what creates all these marvelous healing abilities. And these extracts that I produced from many different strong varieties of sedative indica varieties, they all had their different medical values, but luckily, for the most part, indicas are very effective in the treatment of cancer. But, they do vary from strain to strain. Like some will be better for killing pain or lowering pressure for glaucoma patients, that type of thing, or controlling blood sugar for diabetics and undoing that damage that disease causes. So, there's so many different uses here, but what I really like to see here is all of these different strains, like I used to do. I used to mix the extracts from 6 or 8 different strains all together. And when you did that, you had this wonderful healing effect from all of these different strains. And it literally is a cure-all when you do this. Mm-hmm. But I see, all of these people running off the pharmaceutical industry and GW Pharmaceuticals in England, looking for all of these patents, and this is all nonsense. This plant belongs to the human race. It doesn't belong to any damn government, and it certainly doesn't belong to the pharmaceutical industry. This plant is not just about the healing abilities. It's the ability of this plant to save us in so many other ways. We can end starvation. We can end unemployment. We can supply our own energy. We don't need to be making this planet more toxic. We can replace all these harmful industries that we have today. It's put people back on the land where they belong so they can make a decent living. It's really the key. It's really the key to mankind's future. And if we don't soon do something about it, we don't have a future, because these rich industrialists, they're nothing but a pack of psychopaths, and they're in control of our governments. They have been for a long time now. And in turn, the government controls the legal system, the medical system, the education system. They control it all. And they and through the news media, which is also corrupted to the core, they just feed us whatever they wish, and the public sits there and laps it up. It's ridiculous. This whole way of life we're living is nothing but a sick illusion. And it's an illusion that the rich elite created. And we were stupid enough to go along with it. But, at the rate they're poisoning this earth, we're living in a toxic environment. Our earth is being poisoned more and more every day. That is compromising our immune systems. And then our immune system cannot, react properly when it's attacked by diseases. So this is when you need to use the cannabinoids produced from the cannabis plant because they work with our endocannabinoid system. They boost our immune system, and the healing effects are just magnificent. We have a medicine here that's totally non-addictive, no danger at all. Nobody in history has ever died from it. And on top of that, it's a medicine that follows the actual basis of medicine, which is called the Hippocratic Oath. And in that oath, it states, first do no harm, and it also states, as a physician, I shall not administer poison. So, what do these doctors think they're doing today? Practically everything they give us is liver toxic. That's poison to the liver. And then on top of that, when you start looking at chemotherapy and radiation, well, to me, that's just utter madness. We're using cancer-causing treatments to treat your cancer. I mean, where do they get this stuff?
Oh, you know what, Rick? You said to me once when I first met you on radio, which was about almost 5 years ago, you made a wide, broad statement at that point, and I kind of chuckled when you first said it to me that, the cannabis plant / hemp plant can literally cure this planet from the inside out. And, now I look at it and I go, wow, this plant has the answers to, I'd say, honestly, without exaggerating, 90% of the problems that we have on the planet today. If we implemented hemp and / cannabis on a widespread basis around this planet, we might have a chance to save it, Rick. But right now, the way I see this planet going, I look at the die-off of species, I study everything that's going on with our planet as far as our environment and our animals go, the oceans go, our planet is dying. And what is it going to take for people to wake up? What is it going to take? Do we have to see the breakdown of the food chain, Rick, before people wake up to the fact that we need to change our ways quickly? Well, we do, folks. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, most of the human race, we've all been badly misled here, and this is what they have to understand. So, I mean, we have to stop being weak-kneed. We have to face up to our responsibility for coming generations. These idiots that are in charge right now are destroying the damn planet. So we have to get together and we have to put an end to this, and we got to do it now because time's a wasting, believe me. And it's so damn obvious when you see what's happening in our world, who's in control. This business about electing people, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference what party you put in there. Before they ever go into power, they're already bought and paid for. They're not going to work for you. And for years, I'm 67 years old. I've listened to all these political promises for all my life. Did they ever fulfill any promise they ever made? It's just nonsense. They'll say anything to get elected, and that's exactly what they do. But you know what? I've always said with this thing with cannabis, cannabis is going to set itself free now. There's no stopping it. Millions of people worldwide have produced, high-quality extracts of their own. They've seen the amazing healing powers. Unfortunately, there's a great number of scam artists out there who are using my name, and some of them even claim that I'm affiliated with them, but that's totally untrue. The only thing I'm affiliated with is my own website, phoenixtears.ca, and if you go to that website, you'll find all the information you'll need to produce this medicine and use it properly. The information is all there. I also sell my books on that website, and I'm affiliated with my wife's. My wife has a website called SimpsonRamador.com, and that was established to distribute my books. But that's the only things I'm affiliated with. So the minute you see somebody that says they're supplying the Rick Simpson oil, right off the bat, you're dealing with a crook. They're just using my name because I don't understand why my name ever even came into this, because if you produce high-quality cannabis extracts, you don't need to use my name. These extracts will make their own reputation, and they'll make that reputation very rapidly. So, like Rick, I said, when you run into my name, they're using it, as a scam.
Right, Rick. Well, oils have been around for thousands of years, and what you've done in your life is just expose this to the human race. You've crusaded about the effects of oil. But basically, buddy, to produce high-grade oil, you have a site, you have a book that, you wrote Running from the Cure. And people can go on the internet and punch in Running from the Cure, and you can watch a video, and Rick will explain to you exactly in that video how to produce these high-grade oils. It's a no-brainer. It's very, very simple to do, and everybody can do it in their kitchen or in their backyard. I've been producing it for years now, Rick, and I've seen incredible effects on the people in my community with it. Unbelievable
Oh
what
yeah.
people are saying. And now it's still illegal. I mean, what a travesty that is in our society. That something that's so beneficial is being held back from us so hard by the government. But of course,
Well,
we know who's involved and how big farming is running the governments. The governments aren't run by people; they're run by big farming and the banks. And until people
yeah.
can realize that and stand against it, we're not going to see the changes that we need.
Well, that's more than true, Barry. And I don't know. People have become so damn weak-kneed. This is a God-given plant we're talking about. Matter of fact, it even states right in the Bible that we, as human beings, have the right to use these plants to our best advantage, for God's sakes. So
Hmm.
who are these people like Trudeau and Trump and them that are all standing against this? I mean, this is utter nonsense. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I went to the liberal government was in power in 2003 when I went to the government. I went to Anne McClellan, Minister of Health, and Yolande Assange, who followed her in that position. I went to every damn political party. We went to the nature of things, Dr. David Suzuki. We went to Suzuki. He did nothing. The same thing with the Canadian Cancer Society, and the same thing with the United Nations. The whole thing's a fix, for God's sakes. And right at this very moment, there are so many people all over this planet that are suffering and dying simply over greed. And these people, standing there with their police forces, you can't grow cannabis to heal yourself. I mean, this is just utter nonsense. And this is what people have to realize. I mean, I encourage everyone, if you're Canadian or whatever, and you have one of these magic licenses, for God's sakes, take that license and send it back to the Minister of Health and tell him to shove it where the sun don't shine. I mean,
Exactly.
it's ridiculous. You don't need a license to grow cannabis any more than you need a license to grow potatoes. It's beyond belief that that our society has slipped this far, and and it's like I said. Does the world have to completely fall apart before we wake up? The handwriting is on the wall for the human race, and if we don't wise up quick, our children and coming generations, they don't have a future. It's going to be nothing but more poisoning, and when I see this increase in the rates of cancer, autism, Crohn's, all of these horrible diseases, where is this all coming from?
Well, hey, Rick.
Basically, most of it's our environment and what we're shoving into ourselves.
Well, yeah, Canada and the United States now leads the world in most cognitive disorders in the human body. I mean, we are now the sickest nations in the world, and that's a fact. In 1970, Rick, we were the healthiest nations in the world. So what's gone on? How's our health system working, guys? Is it working? Yeah, Rick, we spend 10 times as much as the next closest countries in the world on healthcare. And yet we are now the sickest nations in the world. Well, does it take a rocket scientist to figure out that something is really messed up in Denmark, buddy? Come on, it's a joke. It really is. But people, I do see a paradigm shift now, Rick. I honestly can see a shift in people's thinking. When I talk about cannabis now, I don't get the kickback that I did 3 or 4 years ago, where immediately people would cowl and think of a demonization of the plant and how it's going to destroy your life. People's attitudes are changing. So what we really need to do now is just keep educating people. I think it's the time for, if ever there was a time for civil disobedience in a society, now would be the time. It's time for men to grow balls, Rick, because they don't seem to have. I agree. They don't seem to have any anymore. Am I the only person seeing this? Am I the only person? Are we the only people going, hey, enough of this bull? We're not going to take this anymore. We have the answers. We want to implement this. We want to grow it for our fiber, for our food, for our industrial use. Boy, Rick, I get into conversations with firefighters all the time, and you can just see their eyes open up when I say to them, how would you like to build houses in the next 3-4 generations that won't build? How would you like to eliminate the millions of dollars that are lost in fires every year, the lives that are lost by firefighters going into buildings to try and save people? How would you like to eliminate that from our society? Well, we can. Mm-hmm. Simple. Yeah. Build buildings out of hempcrete. I mean, I show people videos of a blowtorch being held on a piece of hemp board for 2 minutes, and all you have is a black spot. Period. It will not burn. Folks, will think about that. Think about that for 1 minute. And Rick, the other beauty of that, and this is a no-brainer, and this is why society's got to demand we use it, is because when you build buildings with hempcrete, you never, ever have to worry about black mold. A hemp board can be exposed to water and dried out 1,000 times, and you'll never get the perpetration of black mold, folks, ever. And black mold is toxic and is a major health effect in our society today. That can all be eliminated. Plus, of course, deforesting the planet. has got to come to a stop, because we know, Rick, that I've read reports on the amount of oxygen now that's available to the planet and how it's depleting. Well, Rick, trees produce about 40% of our oxygen on the planet. The rest is produced by plankton. And plankton now, they tell me, the World Wildlife Federation, I just read reports on the amount of plankton that have actually died in the ocean in the last 40 years. And they're telling us it's down about 50%. Almost 50% of the plankton are dead. So we're losing 50% of our Rick, they produce 60% of our oxygen on the planet. It comes from plankton. That's a fact. And if we lost 50% of 60% production, what are we doing? And then we're cutting down trees to boot. Come on, guys.
Well, this is the thing, with cannabis, like people, they have no conception of this. But the bottom line is, when you grow the cannabis plant, it takes in CO2 and it gives off fresh air. And then at the end of the process, after you remove the seeds, the medicine, and whatever else you're going to do with that plant, you can take what's left and turn it into a fuel, like ethanol.
Right.
And from what I understand, with these new enzyme processes they have now, you can produce as much as 1,800 gallons of ethanol off of one little acre of hemp. For God's sakes, and people have to start realizing this is really one plant we're talking about here. This is the cannabis hemp plant. People get all mixed up, marijuana and all these stupid names. This is truly the cannabis hemp plant. And the different genetics of this plant cause it. Some strains have a great deal of these resins, which contain the healing cannabinoids. Other strains have practically little or nothing. But those strains are calling, industrial hemp. The other strains, well, no, those are marijuana. No, they're all the same plant. It's just different genetics. That's all it is. So I want people to understand that. And this is not hemp seed oil we're talking about here. This is another thing I've had been questioned on over and over, But hemp seed oil is very beneficial in some ways, for cardiovascular, that type of thing. But hemp seed oil does not contain the healing cannabinoids. The cannabinoids develop as the plant grows. And that's what I produce the extracts from. And I call those extracts hemp oil because all through history, this is what farmers had called this plant. This is the essential oil from the cannabis hemp plant. But seed producers have been calling what they produce hemp oil forever. And they're mislabeling the product, because it should say right on the label that it's cold-pressed hemp seed oil, because that's actually what it is. Mm-hmm. So, I hope that people can understand that. And, another thing, if people would just go to my website and simply read all the information I've made available, it answers most of the questions they have about this. I can't tell people where to go to get the extract. Today someone might be producing the best extract on the planet, but tomorrow they could be working with totally different strains, and the extract they're producing may have little healing values. Right. So, and there's no way that, there's thousands, tens of thousands of people all over the planet producing this stuff. And, unfortunately, there are some good ones out there that who are actually trying to help the public, but there's also a great number of bad ones, and they're just out to scam you. Mm-hmm. So, what I've always said right along, it's, this is all about being self-sustaining. Learn to heal yourself. Learn to make your own medicines. Stop relying on people in white coats. If you look at the track record, that they have in curing diseases, it's the most sensible thing you can do is produce your own medication and treat yourself. And that way you become your own doctor. Exactly. And believe me, once you see the healing powers of these extracts, all the mystery in medicine soon goes out the window. Basically, I'm not saying we don't need doctors. We do. If we get in an accident or something of that nature, we need someone to put us back together. That I have no problem with that. Right. And there's many of these surgeons are very talented in that respect. But that side of medicine is okay. But the other side of medicine, when you look at pill pushers, oncologists, psychiatrists, this is all nothing but a racket. For God's sakes, and especially when you look at oncology, where the oncologists get a big kickback every time they sell a chemo treatment. They get these big kickbacks right back, from the drug companies, for God's sakes. And on top of that, it's a well-known fact today that over 90% of oncologists, if they have cancer themselves, they will not take their own treatments. This is not medicine anymore. This is nothing but damn madness. And it's all caused, from greed. And this is what we got. We got to put a stop to this damn corruption, because it's killing so many people. And, when I see people like Trudeau just sitting there, in their little offices doing nothing, while Canadians suffer and die, more and more every day. And he talks about legalizing. Well, his form of legalizing, you watch what happens. All of these companies that Trudeau has given out the license to, in the near future, what do you think they're going to be growing? Do you think it might be genetically modified cannabis?
Yeah,
I do.
Monsanto is genetically modifying it, and of course they're going to take out any healing ingredients in the plant because there is no money in people that are healthy, Rick. Simple as that. But then we look at stats like the third biggest killer of people in the United States of America now is drug interaction, prescription drugs. The third biggest killer. Well, who the heck is the drug pushers and who are the criminals, folks? And what's it going to take for people to wake up to this, Rick? I bang my head against the wall every day. I do. I go, this is so simple. It's so much common sense involved in what we're talking about, and yet you'll still see people lined up at the pharmacist getting their prescriptions filled every day. I just don't. I'm kind of banging my head against the wall, Rick. It's like, what is it going to take for people to wake up? I really, some days I ask myself, what is it going to take for people to see what we're talking about is true?
Today, Barry, there's so many of these big outfits like Harvard University. They started agreeing with me back in 2007, and then the American Cancer Institute itself, right on their own web pages, they openly state that THC is very effective in the treatment of several different forms of cancer.
Yet they still classify it as a class 1 narcotic.
Oh yeah, but you see what we're seeing today. What we're seeing today with the governments in the Netherlands and in Canada, what they're doing. These companies that they're giving these licenses to produce extracts, they're not allowing these companies to produce the same extracts that I produced. Matter of fact, I was talking to one of these companies contacted me and wanted me to collaborate with them, and of course I refused because they're a pharmaceutical company. Those don't belong to pharmaceutical companies. But then the guy tried to tell me, he said, well, we make some of the best extracts in Canada. But I had already gone to their damn website. And the strongest extract they were making was 17% THC and 2% CBD.
Wow.
So what the hell was the other 81%? Wow. And I told the guy point blank, I said, my extracts were up in the 85-90% THC range. Well, Then this guy said, well, the government, here in Canada won't allow us to produce those type of extracts. And I said, so how do you expect me to collaborate with you? It's insane, and they're trying their level best to keep this under wraps and keep it under control. But the simple truth is these governments have to face the fact that the public now knows that the original governments that did this, well, the government representatives that outlawed this plant and then they put all these acts in place and nonsense like that. Yes, they were nothing but a pack of criminals. But what makes this worse? Ever since that time, 1923 it was outlawed in Canada, 1937 in the U.S. So for decades and decades now, one government after another have been defending that same absurd policy. Mm-hmm. These laws were all based in lies, deception, and corruption. There's not a shred of truth in anything they've ever told us about this damn plant, and they never had any right to outlaw it, and they know it. Just its medicinal use alone. When you go back in the old pharmacopoeias from the 1800s and early 1900s, it's wall-to-wall hemp. Hemp was a major ingredient in practically every medication they were putting out there, for God's sakes. Yep. And now all of a sudden, you take the most, in Canada, they take the most medicinal, plant in the world, and then they outlaw it. Based on what? People often say, well, I don't like to, they're all so politically correct. I don't like the way Rick Simpson gets so frustrated and worked up. Well, damn it, family members of mine have died. And family members of these people that are making these criticisms, they died too. Does that not make you mad? Does that not make you frustrated? And knowing that it's still going on to this very day? You're damn right I'm frustrated, and I'm sick of all this nonsense. The public have to wake up and take responsibility for their own future, and if they don't do it, we don't have a future.
Yeah, Rick, we talk about the medical benefits, but you know what? Just as important as the medical benefits is the industrial use of hemp. And I almost put them on an even platform with themselves because what industrial hemp can do to our planet. We talk about medical, but I read a report here, Rick, where they grew industrial hemp. This was in the Netherlands, and I can send you this report. They grew industrial hemp on a normal acre of land for 2 years. And after 2 years, they put a conventional crop of, I believe it was lettuce and a couple other vegetables on that field. And what they found is that the vegetables were growing 30% faster than normal.
Yeah.
And then they did tests on the amounts of phytochemicals that were in these vegetables at vine ripened stage. And what they found is they contained about 40% more phytochemicals than a normal crop of the same strain being grown on a conventional field. And the reason for that, Rick, and people don't understand this, that when a hemp plant grows, the root system doesn't spread out, it goes deep. And what it'll do, it releases microbes in the soil that are never released during normal plant growth. Hence, you're seeing incredible rates of growth, and you're seeing incredible concentrations of phytochemicals in plants that are grown on land that's been previously had a crop of industrial hemp. So in other words, if we were to start to use industrial hemp to produce our fuel worldwide, well, we could rotate it that we did industrial hemp on, say, 2,000 acres of land for 2 years, and then the next year go to a conventional crop and let a conventional crop grow on that plant, on that field for 2 years, and then go back to industrial hemp. I'm reading studies on this, and it just boggles my mind what we could do in our food production and also the value of our food simply by using industrial hemp. Now, the demand for industrial hemp will grow, Rick, because people are starting to wake up to hempcrete. And that's something I talk about with people all the time is hempcrete. I had a comment in chat here about black mold, and black mold will not form in hempcrete. That's a fact. So think about that, folks. Just that alone, if we could eliminate that from our society, just the black mold and what it does to our health every year, and it's a silent killer, that would be a monumental step forward. And plus, I said, we won't have houses that burn. They got a bridge in Europe, Rick, that was built 600 years ago to hemp, and it looks like the day it was built.
That
So
doesn't surprise me.
It's a no-brainer, guys. Everything about hemp is a no-brainer. From the production of our fiber, we use a third of the water that we use in cotton production as we do in hemp production. We have no chemical imprint in the water when we're finished our production of our hemp fiber. Everything's biodegradable. You can take a hemp t-shirt, wear it for 20 years because that's how long it's going to last because it's such a strong fiber. And after 20 years, you can throw it in your garden, cover it up with soil, and 3 months later, there won't be anything left of it. It's just, and now, Rick, I just read another report on hemp-based plastics. And, biodegradable plastics are coming on the market. But now they can produce a plastic with hemp that has a 4-month shelf life. After 4 months, the plastic will start to break down. So in other words, in all our landfills right now that are filled with hundreds and hundreds of millions of tons of plastic, that is a major problem that we're going to be dealing with in the future. We're dealing with in the ocean. Fish are being opened up with stomachs full of plastic. Well, that, of course, is because of the lack of food in the ocean now. But still, that all can be eliminated by implementing a biodegradable based plastic. And that technology is here now. We got to grab it, guys. So many answers, Rick. So many answers. And it boggles me. It really does. Every time I look into something with hemp, I spend a lot of my time now researching it, Rick. And it really, really is the cure-all.
There's no downside.
There's no downside. There's no negative to it. None. Show me a negative.
That's what I'm looking for.
I can't find one, Rick.
You won't find anything detrimental about that plant. And the amazing thing was, when you read these old accounts of when they used to grow it freely in the U.S., they didn't have to rotate it. They grew hemp on the same land year after year after year. It didn't deplete the soil. So there's simply no argument. This is really one of the most magnificent food supplies on the planet, because if you have hemp seeds, you're never going to starve to death. So we can put an end to starvation simply by growing this damn plant. And it grows in harsh environments. It's the ultimate answer.
What about feeding all our livestock hemp?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is what they did all those years. The farmers used to feed this to their animals. Livestock? Yeah, there's no need for growth hormones and antibiotics. Feed the animals cannabis. I'm against, when I look at what they're doing today, none of it makes any sense. And then when you look at chemtrails and genetic modification and everything else they're doing to harm us, it's so ridiculous. And one of the most outstanding ones I've seen here lately was that when Bayer bought out Monsanto, the big drug company Bayer, $63 million, I think it were $1 billion. They bought out Monsanto. So Monsanto is going to produce food that is very low in nutrient value, or maybe no damn value at all. And in turn, that's going to cause the public to become more sickly. And then where will they buy their drugs? Well, Bayer, of course. talk about conflict of interest. This is unbelievable that this type of thing is going on. All of this nonsense about Codex Alimentarius, the outlawing of the natural. For God's sakes, the minute somebody walks, into the House of Commons and even makes such a statement, they should be shot right there because they're traitors against their own damn people. There's nobody has the right to control the natural, and they know it. But it's all, if you're bought and paid for, you'll say whatever they want. And believe me, there's a hell of a lot of bought and paid for people out there who are pretending to represent us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything in my life, I've kind of tried to switch to naturals, Rick. I mean, everything I do now for my body is natural. I've got a book called The Encyclopedia of Natural Healing. I urge everybody to go out and purchase this book because everything in there, any disorder in the human body, basically, with the exception of trauma medicine, can be treated naturally. And I it's almost 3 years now, Rick, since I've been to a doctor. Almost 3 years. Yeah. But I ingest 1/3 of a gram of high-grade oil every day of my life. I've been doing it since I met you. And luckily, I was able to grow a whole bunch outdoors last year that, wasn't great strain. A pound. Normally, out of a pound of really good bud, you'll get 70 to 80 grams. But it allowed me to consume this stuff on a regular, the financial strain. And what I've done, everybody can do. You can produce your own oil. The only cost you're going to run into is your solvents or your I use ISO because I've been using ISO for years. I know there's a little bit of a kickback against ISO, but it seems to work really well for me. And the small amount of contaminants possibly left in the oil when I'm finished don't outweigh the benefits of the oil. But I've been doing it almost, when were you here, Rick? That was in 2013, so it's 4 years now. With the exception of a little period there where I didn't have any. I've been using it every day in my body, buddy. I'll tell you, I'm feeling like I'm 35 years old again, Rick. Yeah. Unbelievable. I have no problems with my body. It just seems to tick. But then, I've interviewed people like Dr. David Bruce Allen, and you were on a show, I believe, with Dr. Allen with me one day there, Rick. And, he's been studying the endocannabinoid system in the human body now for 15 years. And he still, to this day, tells me that. I just had a conversation with him. He says, I can't yet really understand how this system works in the body. But the fact is, you don't have to understand how it works. The fact is, you have to know that it does work. The World Health Organization stated that the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in the human body is the greatest medical discovery of the 20th century. And that's right from their documents, guys. Go read that and then tell me what's going on. Why universities aren't studying this extensively. Only 13% of the universities in the United States of America now are even touching the subject. And that is a travesty. Travesty.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, most of the medical schools still aren't teaching anything about the endocannabinoid system. And really, that is the most important system in our bodies. I mean, it's the same thing with all animal life. And really, I've got to the point, Barry, now that I much prefer to treat animals than I do humans because, animals don't ask all of these weird questions. They just take the medicine and heal. And I get these people contact me all the time. Well, I've got a small dog or I've got a big dog. They think it has a lot to do with the size, as to how much the animal can take. But really, this stuff is not deadly. You don't die from this. What it causes you to sleep, or it causes the animal to sleep. So when I started treating animals, I used to give animals like a dosage of about a quarter. I wouldn't start them off with a half a grain of rice. I do that to take some of the fear out of it for people. But I would give an animal like a quarter of a gram first dose. Right. Just knock them down. And I like working with dogs and animals like that anyway because they heal so much quicker than humans. Their metabolism is so much faster. And literally, I've seen dogs that had terminal cancer heal completely in a week and a half to 2 weeks. You can almost see it happening. And it's a real pleasure to work with animals like that. But, people have to lose their fear of this. And they have to realize that it's the strong, sedated indica strains that you need for medicinal use. The energizing sativas, they'll make an extract in some cases that is so strong that it will literally make the patient bounce off the walls. You don't want a patient energized, especially ones that have terminal cancer and things of that nature. You want them sleeping and resting because that's part of the healing process.
Exactly.
And what I've always told people, the same thing. Just when you take your dosage, about 45 minutes later, they usually get this kind of a smile on their face. Within 5 minutes, then they're laying down sleeping. And this is good for you. And there will be a lot of sleeping in the beginning. You'll sleep for maybe the first 2 or 3 weeks, you'll spend most of your time sleeping. And I also warn people not to drive their cars in the beginning until they get the feel of this medicine. Because once they get the feel of it, they're perfectly safe to drive because their motor skills are not impaired. And I've seen many terminal cancer patients go back to work after 1 month of increasing their doses. They got up to the point where they're ingesting the third of a gram every 8 hours. Then went back to work, and the people they were working with didn't even know they were taking it. You're not getting high on it because you build up a tolerance. When you have an extract, this is the reason I always tell people it's best to make it, make the extract it's nice to make it from a mixture of different good indica strains. But even if you have only one indica to make the extract from, it'll probably work on your cancer. And you'll build up a tolerance to that specific extract. But if you take, say, like 30 grams of one type of extract and you build up your tolerance, and then, to the point where you're taking a gram a day, and then you switch over to another extract made from different strains, then it's going to hit you very hard because you haven't got a tolerance for this new extract.
Right.
That's the reason I always like to see people take the full 60 grams of extract and that it's all the same. That's very important.
What I've done with people that are dealing with cancer with the extracts, because the buzz sometimes scares people a little bit. I've stopped them. I started them on small amounts and built it up after 4 or 5 days. I'll double the amount, and that seems to work really good. I've done that with 6 or 7 people in my community, and it's had amazing effects on them. I'm going to share one real quick story with you here, Rick. Just another great story that I got a lady friend, my buddy up in the Nass Valley, which is, I don't know if you were up in the Nass with me or not, but anyways, he lives up in the Nass. His wife is his principal at the school up in the Nass Valley here. And for years, she's just wouldn't even look at cannabis, thought about it as the demonized drug, the gateway drug. But she's been suffering with sleep disorders now for the last 10 years of her life. And John says it's just terrible. She can't sleep at night. Well, we finally convinced her to take a little bit of a third of what did we give her? A grain-sized drop. John says he gave her about a grain-sized drop about an hour before she went to sleep. And she woke up the next morning in tears, says it was the best sleep she's had in 10 years, and she woke up feeling energized. Can you imagine that? Now she takes it every night. Now she's taking it every night, the same amount, and she says her sleeps now have absolutely turned upside down, and it's changed her life.
See, a lot of the time,
and this is a person that wouldn't even look at it 4 years ago.
Well, people, when they start off, a lot of people will try to fight that sleepy effect. But I tell them, don't fight it. The oil is telling you to go lay down and rest. That's what the oil is telling you to do. So just do what the oil is asking you and enjoy the ride. There's no harm here. You're not going to wake up dead. This is not pharmaceuticals we're talking about. We're
not talking about opiates.
Any other pharmaceutical. I mean, when you even look at aspirin, for God's sakes, I mean, most people look at aspirin as being safe, yet thousands of people worldwide die from aspirin every year. Mm-hmm. Nobody dies from cannabis, for God's sakes, and nobody ever has.
75,000 people died from alcohol last year in North America, and nobody reported dead from cannabis except for this one strain that was being put out that wasn't a natural strain. I forget, what do they call that stuff? Ice, I think it's called. But there was a strain that came on, a cannabis strain that came on the market in the United States of America, and it was actually killing people, but it wasn't cannabis. There was not the fentanyl, it was something else they were putting in this, and I'll look into that one. But yeah, they were reporting deaths on it. Of course, the media picked this up and ran with it. People dying from cannabis. Well, what a crock of crap.
That's not spice you're talking about, is it?
Spice, that's what I'm talking about, Rick. Sorry.
Yeah, they have quite a bit of trouble with that in the UK, from what I understand. And it's not cannabis at all. There's all kinds of varieties of this stuff. But people think they're buying legal highs or something like that. It looks like it's buds of some kind, but it's not from the cannabis plant. And like you said, some people have lost their lives using this trash. But no, like I said, cannabis never harmed anyone.
Yeah, it was just people chatting in chat here about what we're talking about, Rick. And I mean, really, if everybody had a jar of high-grade cannabis oil beside their bed every night and took a gram or a third of a gram, boy, I'll tell you, you'd stop seeing lineups at the doctor's office. And we're convinced that in my life.
We live in a drug-addicted society, Barry, and there's so many people now that are addicted to these damn pharmaceuticals. They're walking around in a daze. You can't turn their back on them. They'll steal everything in your house just to get another fix. This is what we live in, a drug-addicted society. But if these extracts are used properly, we can take these people off these horrible substances with very little. They go through very little withdrawal. I mean, even with terminal cancer patients, many of them that I treated were taking hydromorphine. They've been taking morphine for months. They were total addicts. But usually within a week and a half to 2 weeks, we could step them off the morphine. Then the oil would take its place and kill their pain and everything. And this whole thing that they've always been going on about, cannabis is a gateway drug. If you smoke a joint today, next week you'll be shoving, needles in your arm. This is just utter nonsense. Cannabis is a gateway, but it's a gateway back. It doesn't lead you to the use of hard drugs. For the most part, when you look at what's killing people today, over 80% of people that are dying from overdoses on the street are dying from pharmaceuticals. And this is what people got to understand. They're the drug dealers.
Look at studies in states where cannabis has been legalized, Rick. We've seen a 30% drop in the use of psychotropic drugs in states where it's been legalized. And, people that are on these psychotropic drugs are the worst thing in the world for people. I got a lady friend here in town who now is trying to get off them. And she says it's like going through hell. She just can't believe the addiction in her body. She's been using them for a year. And she says she can't even describe it. They're so addictive. Once they've got you on these psychotropics, they've got you for life. They start you at 6 years old on Ritalin because you've got ADHD, bull crap, and they got you for the rest of their life. I've got a niece in Ontario that's a basket case because of Ritalin. I see it all the time, Rick. What is it going to take? We really got to educate people, and I see it coming now, Rick. I do. I see a giant wave coming.
Well, this whole thing, like even that doctor that invented ADHD, on his deathbed,
on his deathbed,
on his deathbed, he admitted that it was all false. The whole damn thing was nothing but a sham. And you see all of these diseases. They dream. It seems like they dream up a new disease every week, for Christ's sakes.
Well, of course.
But cannabis. Well, cannabis is literally the ultimate answer because it works with our bodies to keep us in a state of good health. And it's the greatest thing that we can do to protect our children. You don't have to worry about these flu epidemics or anything of that nature. Just give your child, cannabis extract. That'll protect them. And for God's sake, stay away from Bill Gates and his damn vaccinations. That's doing so much harm. It's unbelievable. I don't know how Gates stays out of jail. They just threw him and his foundation out of India after they've done damage to tens of thousands of people. This is just sick.
Well, we're airing the movie Vaxxed in Terrace here on September the 9th at the R.M. Lee Theater, Rick, and I'll tell you, people in the community are already talking about it. Everybody that's ever seen this movie, their perspective on vaccination changes forever. And if anybody out there listening to us talk today hasn't seen the movie Vax, I urge you to go watch the movie and make sure you've got a box of Kleenex nearby because it will really, really hit you hard. The factual information that was covered up by the CDC on the MMR vaccine, the fact they knew it was causing autism in children, their reports and their studies absolutely verified the rise in autism, yet they put it on the market and now they've been caught with their pants down. And so it should be. This is the biggest medical scam in human history, and it has to open up our eyes to what else is going on in the vaccination industry. If they lied about these reports and they covered up these reports from the public, what else have they covered up in the years that the CDC's been in control of monitoring these things? What a joke. Then tie the CDC to the FDA and to the pharmaceutical companies, and you'll see the connections, guys. It's unbelievable that this is going on. But this movie alone, Rick, has done more to wake up people. Everywhere it's being shown in North America, it is going viral, and I look forward to airing it here in Terrace. We finally secured the theater. The theater sits 700 people, and I know we're going to get a crowd out. We're only going to charge $4 to get in and watch it, and it's all set up now for September the 9th. You were at the RM Lee, so you know how big the theater is there, Rick. Good-sized theater. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's great news.
We're going to be airing it. We're going to be airing it there. Well, it's one of the projects we're working on.
Well, people have to become aware of this. Because if you go out and you let these doctors or whoever, give your child all these vaccinations, and then that child goes autistic, that's a life sentence for God's sakes. The child is ruined. But we have had good results using the extracts to try to bring some of these children with autism back, and we are having good results. So there's no disease that I know of that these extracts are not effective for, even schizophrenics. I mean, I've seen schizophrenics take these extracts and within a half an hour go right back to normal. You know, it's amazing what they can do. And this word incurable, that doesn't mean much. When you got cannabis extracts around, you're going to find that it will cure your illness, or it's the best control for that illness that you're probably ever going to find. And it won't do you any harm. This is a medication you can take throughout your life with no harm whatsoever. All it's going to do is protect you.
I've got videos here of a RCMP officer, 74 years old. You've probably seen the vid. But he now, believe it or not, is one of the biggest campaigners in Canada for the effects of cannabis oil and Parkinson's disease, because they finally talked this guy into taking a sample of cannabis oil. They went into his house. His hands were shaking Rick so bad he couldn't hold a spoon. 74 years old. The Parkinson's was so bad, he's shaking. He took, I think it was 1/3 of a gram of oil they gave him. Of course, he got sedated, but after an hour, all his shaking in his body had stopped. And the guy's in tears, realizing that all his life he's been persecuting people and putting people in jail for something that just changed his life.
Oh, that's right. I mean, these police officers got to understand the fact that this truly is the greatest medicine on the planet, and they have, sick and dying loved ones too that would benefit a great deal from the use of this medication. They have to stop this lunacy, this war on, I don't care so much about the war on the rest of these harmful drugs. Fine, keep your war going. That's okay with me. But stop this ridiculous war on cannabis. It's the most useful and most medicinal plant on this earth. And it's the only damn plant that can save us. As a matter of fact, Jack Harris said that himself right at the end of the documentary he made in 1999. And I recommend that everybody watch this. And it's called Emperor of Hemp. But right at the end of the documentary, Jack says, he said, I don't know what will save this world, but I do know that cannabis is the only thing that can. And Jack Harrow was 150% correct.
I watched that video, Rick, and he's spot on. He saw it coming, and he understood what can be done with cannabis and why now, more than ever before in history, we need to bring it back, guys. We do, because our planet is dying. And I don't say that lightly. I say it because I honestly believe what I'm seeing right now. I say to people, you know what, Rick, I say 50% of what I see going on with our environment and our planet is correct, because there is some bullshit out there, excuse my language, but there is some bullcrap out there. And if 50% of what I see is true, then we are in a big pile of crap right now. And the only thing that can change it, guys, is cannabis. And come on, we can make our food with it. We can make our fuel. It has an amazing effect on soil that's been toxified. There's studies in Japan right now, Rick, and you're probably aware of them, of the effects of industrial hemp on soil that's heavily radiated, and the fact that it destroys and kills nuclear isotopes in soil. Well, our whole planet is being covered with radiation right now, and we're only starting to see the problems with radiation. I mean, radiation is going to kill this planet. We need to get it off the planet. That's a subject we talk about a lot. A subject that I hit on a lot is the insanity of nuclear energy, and I know Lonnie talks about it, and this station is dedicated to exposing that information. But it's so true that if we don't get away from the ways we're doing things right now, then our children really aren't going to have much of a future. And I hate to say that, but it's so true, Rick.
Well, I mean, people have to stop listening to all of these fools that are out there saying, go along with regulations and taxation. And some of these people, they pretend to be cannabis activists, but as far as I'm concerned, they're not activists at all. They're just flunkies for the rich elite. That's what they are. Like I said, the bottom line is we all have the right to grow this plant, and we can grow as much as we want. It's our natural God-given right to do so. So, if you run into people that are trying to convince you otherwise, just walk away from them, because they're not real activists. It's such a sad situation right now, where so many people, and organizations out there are just going along with the rich elite because, this is what the government wants. You can't, in Canada, or I believe in the same in the U.S., if you want to go into a cannabis industry, you cannot borrow money from the banks. Of course, the banks are controlled by the Rothschilds, so they won't lend you any money to bring out, cannabis or make the extracts or anything of that nature. So what they're doing is the big money is coming in and taking over this business.
Oh, I lost him. I think we lost Rick. I don't see him here on the call, guys. Don't know what happened there. I'll try and get him back here. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. It seems like the call was dropped. Can you guys hear me? Somebody mention in chat if you can or not. Because I don't hear Rick talking. It seems like the call's dropped. Okay, are you back, Rick?
Oh, yeah, I'm back. We dropped out there for a minute.
Yeah, you dropped right off. I couldn't hear anything going on here for the last minute or so, but we're back anyways. I love Skype, and I love the interferences they give us all the time. They don't like us talking about this. They don't like us talking about this stuff, Rick, and you know that, and I know that. And more so, we're going to see attacks on people like you and me that are actually telling people the truth about this incredible plant and why we need to bring it back, guys. We really do. I look at what's coming for my children every day. I think about, boy, what this planet's going to be like in 10 years based on what I see from now, even 15 years from now. What they're going to be living in. We're going to be living in a cesspool of chemicals. We already are. And more so than ever before, we need this plant to build our immune system. And plus, there's all kinds of other naturals that people can look at that will super boost your immune system. And one of them I talk about a lot, of course, is chaga, Rick. I've been talking about chaga now for almost 4 years because I'm using it in my body. I'm seeing it being used in my community widespread, and I'm seeing an incredible effect on people. Everything we need to heal our bodies is provided by the earth, guys. Anything comes out of a pharmaceutical office is nothing but poison, and doctors should be hung because they're the biggest hypocrites in the world. You can go to a doctor's office, he'll write you a prescription 1 week and go back next week, he'll write you another prescription. They all contain analyticals, they all store in your body fat, and henceforth we see it being the biggest killer, the third biggest killer of people in North America today. That just blows my mind when I read these kind of stats. Why can't people wake up to this, Rick?
Well, brother, I mean, I would rate the leading cause of death to be pharmaceuticals. Because, they're shoving so much of this stuff into people everywhere now. And, and like I said, if you and I have the same illness and we go to the same doctor and he prescribes us the same medication, that doctor has no idea what effect it's going to have because we're all chemically different. And then before you know it, you have a side effect, and then he gives you another medication to fight the side effect, and then another and another. And, I look at pharmaceuticals as presenting a huge danger at the present time because there's just so many people passing away needlessly, and their minds, everything, when you're taking doses of substances that are liver toxic, you're taking poison, and poison damages every vital organ in your body. Cannabis does none of these things. Cannabis is literally the answer for most medical problems, and from what I see with the pharmaceutical industry, this is what they're so afraid of because they already know that these extracts can replace the use of practically everything they produce. That puts them out of business. And this is exactly what I wish to see because these companies are nothing but pure evil. And for the last few decades, they've done nothing, for the public but kill them. And it's just horrible. I can't believe that an industry like this was even ever allowed to exist.
Well, people are waking up to it, Rick, and conversations like this are critical. To get people really thinking in the right direction. We're down to the last couple of minutes. This hour has gone really fast. It always does when I'm talking with you, Rick. But in the last couple of minutes here, why don't you plug your site again and where people can hear and follow you?
Well, my website, my one and only website, is phoenixtears.ca, and the CA stands for Canada. And you can get all the information there right on the website that you will need to produce and use this medication properly. You will also see a great deal of other information there. And my books are for sale on the website. You can also get the ebook versions through Amazon Kindle, and they're also available on my wife's website, which is simpsonramadour.com.
Thanks, folks, for joining. See you next week. Bye for now.
be Anti-Media Radio with your host Nick Burnaby here on UCY.tv.
When there's World War II